Hello, my name is Giles Semper. I'm the Executive Director of the Go Southampton Business Improvement District. Today I'm going to talk about the Dutch city of Rotterdam and the inspiration that I believe it offers for our own city of Southampton. I'm a huge fan of the Netherlands and its resourceful people. It's always been a marvel to me how they can be so laid back and yet so effective. In terms of what I do, placemaking, urban revitalization, they are really the masters. That, I think, is a consequence of having such a small and vulnerable country. The Dutch can never afford to stop thinking about how to get the most out of all of their resources. But added to this is a thoroughgoing commitment to quality. Good design is to be seen in all aspects of life. If Amsterdam is the effortlessly popular, glamorous child, Rotterdam is perhaps the one that went to a less prestigious university, but has quietly built a world-beating business and made a few million euros into the bargain. Although they're relatively close to each other, 58 kilometers, 1 hour on the train, there's intense competition between these two cities and indeed their football teams. A glance at their respective brands says a lot. Rotterdam Make It Happen is one of the best city brands I've ever seen. And to understand it, I think you need to understand the city's modern history. Spend some time with any Rotterdamer and it quickly emerges, seemingly hardwired into their sense of themselves. On the night of 14th May 1940, almost the entire city centre was flattened, with 900 people losing their lives and 85,000 left homeless. However, it took just 4 days for the Rotterdammers to pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and begin work on their reconstruction plan, literally making it happen. Does the story sound familiar? From the start of my time in Southampton 2.5 years ago, I've been struck by the similarities between the two cities. We're both on the coast. We're both famous for our huge ports. And the old Southampton was also lost to the bombers, this time on 29th and 30th November 1940, to the extent that it has been described to me as still a city under reconstruction. Go Southampton's board has now made 2 visits to Rotterdam, with most participants, it's important to mention, funding themselves. Over the space of 2 nights, we meet a variety of people engaged in the ongoing transformation of the city. After the first visit, we produced a report and an action plan that we presented back to the leader of the council. We believe that much of what we have seen is replicable here in Southampton, and we don't plan to stop talking about it. I'll share the key points of the action plan at the end, but before that, here are a few of the things that inspired us. This is the City Lounge, capital C, capital L. That's the overriding philosophy applied by the municipality, the gemeente, to their treatment of public places and spaces. As they put it, we want more people to live and work in the city centre. We also want more people to visit the city centre and stay longer and spend more. To achieve this, we continue to develop the inner city into a place where there is always something to do, a place where it is pleasant to stay and linger for residents, visitors, students, companies, and investors. In Rotterdam, we were told, the car is a guest. It isn't absent, but it doesn't dominate, as is the case in Southampton. Instead, the municipality has installed a state-of-the-art public transport system with trams and buses connecting seamlessly with an underground network. Not unusually for the Netherlands, it is also a fantastic biking city with a comprehensive network of cycle paths and also hire bikes of every kind, including e-bikes, available on the streets. And this is the architect's drawing of the Koolsingel, one of the main north-south thoroughfares in Rotterdam. And this scheme has been going in while we've been visiting Rotterdam and is fairly close to being finished. And it really does look like this. The city's commitment to public transport is nowhere more evident than in 2016's Rotterdam Centraal Station. This overwhelming building, designed by a team of 4 architects and opened in 2016, acts as a gateway to the north and to the south. And you're looking here at the southern entrance. It is a hub for local, regional, national, and international trains. And as soon as the pandemic is over, you'll be able to get a direct Eurostar to Rotterdam without changing trains at Brussels. A fantastic prospect. The overriding feeling here at the central station is of space and comfort, dominated by the serene images of Rotterdam's port on a huge digital screen that you can see in the middle at the top of this photo. And as you leave the station, the next stage of your journey, by whatever mode, opens up, including the possibility of an uninterrupted walk into the heart of the city. Here we're being shown the station by Marika, the station manager, who's become something of a friend of Southampton. And I couldn't leave the central station without talking about the bike parking underneath. This is a garage for 5,000 bikes, but as we were told by Marika, it's close to being full. For that reason, an even newer station at Utrecht is going to have parking for 15,000 bikes. Centraal Station is not the only landmark building in Rotterdam created by the municipality. The city has notably taken the lead in 2 other instances. The Markthal Market Hall is another staggering building designed by MVRDV architects and finished in 2014. Typically for the Netherlands, the Markthal sweats its footprint to the maximum, with apartments wrapping amazingly around the shell of the building and 4 stories of car parking underneath. It would be hard to describe it as a conventional commercial market hall. It is more about food as theatre. The third civic building I wanted to mention is De Rotterdam. Now, this is a building that doesn't quite look feasible, or if it is feasible, it shouldn't be so beautiful. De Rotterdam is conceived as a vertical city made up of 3 interconnected towers accommodating the HQ of Gemeente, the municipality, apartments, a hotel, conference facilities, shops, restaurants, and cafes. And at its base is a new cruise terminal. It's designed by the city's most famous architect, Rem Koolhaas of the Office of Metropolitan Architecture, OMA. It was first conceived in 1997 and completed in 2013. These towers are part of the ongoing redevelopment of the old abandoned harbour district, with modern cruise ships now replacing the ships of the Holland America line that took thousands of Europeans to the New World. It was a particular pleasure for our party to be able to touch this ship, Aida, which a German ship that visits Southampton on a weekly basis during the cruise season, but which is usually completely out of bounds to us. What do we learn from these three tremendous buildings, Central Station, the Markthal, and De Rotterdam? Well, all of them, interestingly, were projects led by the municipality itself. All of them surely put form and design at the same level as function, and all reflect the Rotterdammers' belief that money will follow ambition, rather than ambition being curtailed by money, as is so often the case in the UK. I've looked at a few examples of what the state is doing in Rotterdam. Now I'm going to talk about a few examples of more bottom-up activity that we've seen in the city. This is Meent, M-E-E-N-T, a 600-metre east-west street that before the bombing of 1940 was considered one of the primary shopping, living and leisure streets in Rotterdam. By the 1970s, most of the retailers in the Meent retired without having successors for their shops. The plinths or ground floor units were filled with temporary employment and travel agencies, and a race to the bottom began, very familiar from the urban landscape of the UK. In 2000, property developer Robin von Weiler saw the potential in the street, realizing that as people lived there, activity could be maintained after regular business hours. He also saw that its place as a street of mass market appeal had been taken by the larger pedestrianised streets of the post-war precinct, so the opportunity was something more boutique and specialised. In 2001, Robin, who you can see here on the left, purchased the Minerva House, a large and central Meent building. From this base, he shifted thinking from a building to building method to a corridor planning method. He began to evacuate temporary employment agencies and the other underperforming tenants by finding loopholes in their rental contracts and starting court cases. At the same time, he persuaded owners both to upgrade their facades in line with a single black and gold design style, but also to ensure high standards of maintenance. Gradually, the tenant mix began to change, and now Meent is perhaps Rotterdam's most famous boutique retail destination. Here's another great placemaker in Rotterdam, Olof van der Waal, director of Scar Atelier. Scar rents or buys buildings and fills them with creatives. Over our two visits, we've watched the evolution of the Wasserij, the former laundry of the Bergweg Hospital. At the time of our last visit, the refurbishment was almost finished and people were starting to occupy the building. It will be a fashion incubator, offering affordable space, and really affordable, as low as €50 per month, to those seeking to establish a foothold in the industry, mainly designers and makers, but also those who support them, like marketeers and journalists. Just around the corner is another of Olof's projects, a school building in a street called Koningsveldstraat. And this is a building which ceased to be a school a few years ago and is probably destined for apartments. But in the meantime, Scar have taken a lease on it and have put in an interim use as artist studios, and a large number of those. They've got a restaurant inside and a garden, and have created a wonderful atmosphere of peace and creative endeavour. Among the tenants are artists Marcello Jimenez and Jaap Schneider, who have invigorated the 200-year-old Dutch tradition of floor-to-ceiling panoramic wallpapers. Really is something to see. However, the artists now make use of emulsion wall paint instead of using the original materials. But painting wallpaper remains a precise process where colours, shape, perspective, and light must come together to transform walls into illusionistic landscapes. We are now down in a location called the Delhi Plain on the peninsula of Katendrecht, still part of the harbour, but a little further south. Unlike the Wilhelmina Plain, where the De Rotterdam building is situated, the Katendrecht was always a residential area, but it had seriously fallen into disrepair. The way this was turned round was for the municipality to incentivize businesses, including a famous Rotterdam theatre called Valhalla, to come into the square at the ground floor level. And this drove the refurbishment and relet of the residential above. As soon as the landlords, who were mainly housing associations, regained confidence, then they knew that they could, it was worth refurbishing the residential. The recession of 2008 put paid to further wide-scale development of the large industrial buildings on the waterfront in front of this square and at the back of the De Rotterdam buildings that you saw earlier. So with classic Rotterdam energy, businesses started to move into the derelict spaces and to reclaim them. Property owners were able to maintain their assets while awaiting development and provide low-cost spaces for innovative businesses. And we discovered that if the landlord makes less than €200,000 a year from his property, a corporation tax rate of only 20% applies. If the taxable amount is higher, then a higher rate of tax applies. So there is actually a reason for landlords to offer this low-cost space. So the Phoenix, as it's called, offers an informal dining experience with separate producer-led stalls retailing a variety of foods. And here's a few members of our group in 2018 enjoying what's on offer there. Upstairs, amazingly, unforgettably, is an office incubator with an incredibly eclectic mix of businesses housed in every form of receptacle, shipping containers, tents, caravans, amazing. The whole of the Phoenix building is now closed to allow the owner to transform it into a museum of migration. But surely it could only do this, get a full-scale cultural use, if the previous development hadn't happened and all these new uses and new customers had been brought in. The Phoenix itself has simply moved to new premises about 300 meters away, which will, I believe, it will inhabit for the foreseeable future. So I hope you've enjoyed this whistle-stop tour of a few highlights of this incredible Dutch city. As we re-emerge from the trauma of the pandemic, with a hope that our cities and towns can be cleaner, more livable places, more exciting places perhaps, it's good to look to Rotterdam as an example. And before I close, I'm just going to share with you, as promised, a few points from our Rotterdam action plan as it refers to Southampton. First, we wanted to experience our own city in the same way as we'd experienced Rotterdam, and we did that in the spring of last year. And what we learned on those 2 days has gone into our response to the recent Southampton local plan. Secondly, we believe all of our public realm in the city and our lighting need upgrading. And if you look at this picture, you might think you were in Rotterdam and you were looking at the city lounge, but in fact, of course, it's our own West Quay shopping centre. And we have an idea that we could flow out the quality of West Quay into the rest of the city. Go Southampton is an organisation that brings together businesses, occupiers of commercial property, but we really think a city of the size of Southampton with its kind of ambition should also have a landowner group, allowing landowners to share common interests and to think about strategically about how the city could be made better. We're desperate to do what we call do a maint by improving a retail strip as an example of how this could be flowed out into the rest of the city. And the parade that we're looking at is the one in the picture, which is at the top of the high street. So we had Robin von Weiler in the city last spring at the time of the Immersive experience. And when he comes back at some future date, we would love to impress him with how we've managed to do our own version of his street. Let's find our pop-ups. Let's do a Phoenix food factory. The truth is that Southampton has lots, probably too many empty buildings, and that some of them are our finest buildings. So who can we involve to activate these buildings to make them places of interest and entertainment? Please join us on that journey. Sixth, we need to rebuild our station. This is probably the area in which there's the greatest contrast between Rotterdam and Southampton, the greatest gap that needs to be covered. It really is shocking, the quality of the experience arriving at the station. It's been like that for ages. We deserve something better. I mentioned the fact that we were able to touch AIDA in Rotterdam. The most tantalizing thing about Southampton is the possibility that one day we would be able to access more of the waterfront than is currently the case. And we would essentially be able to walk straight up to our cruise ships and just enjoy that experience. So that is an ambition for us. And finally, when one looks at the Make It Happen brand and the pride that Rotterdam takes in all the things in the city, we realise that Southampton should be a lot less shy about what it has. When our friends from Rotterdam were here last spring and we were heading for our last appointment of the day, which was at the Spark building over the parks, our friends from Rotterdam were amazed that we hadn't shown them the parks before, and they said they were wonderful and we should talk more about them. So let's do that. Finally, our chair, Tim Keeping, had a great idea for Southampton's version of Make It Happen. Southampton, let's get on with it.
Hi, my name is Mia. I'm the acting programme lead at A Space Arts. I'd like to thank you for watching this video, and if you can spare a few pennies for GHT, please follow the link in the description below to donate to our PayPal account. The money you donate will help support the organisation through this difficult time and allow us to continue developing content like this to keep us all entertained at home. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking here and hitting subscribe, and you can watch more quality content from GHT by clicking here. Thanks again everybody, and stay safe.